Hello again. This is just a quick video to run you through a resource that we'll be including, which is a user testing script. This script gives you an example of an intro that you can use when you're running your test sessions. It gives you some background questions you can potentially use, how to set up going into the tasks for the users, and then some probes to ask while your users are doing those tasks. And finally, some post-test questions that can be helpful as a wrap-up, as a way to conclude the session. I'll run through each of these briefly, and just know that you can make copies of this resource for your own test sessions. And for each new user, you can make them and label them with their name and their date. And if you need some kind of user identification, you can do that. And before we jump into this resource, we have a link here to a really great resource by our colleague at thoughtbot, Elena, which is a really detailed blog post about user testing. So I'd highly recommend reading that if this is your first time conducting some of these tests. But if not, we can delve into this resource specifically. So we've got a bit of an intro here. Again, this is something you can tweak or change as you see fit, as is necessary in your case. But this is a nice basis that you can work off. It just essentially gives an overview of what it is the tester is going to be looking at. It gives them an overview of the structure of this test session. So you're going to be starting with some background questions, and then that they'll be looking to complete some tasks on a screen using a prototype. A little bit of an explainer of what a prototype is, because sometimes your testers will never have experienced one before or will never have interacted with one before. So just let them know that it's not a full product. It is just a kind of a linear flow of a particular product. Again, worth highlighting that you're not really looking to test how the app looks today. It's more about how the app feels and whether the flow works and the functionality is there, etc. Again, call them out to make sure that they're being as honest as they can be. That critical feedback is what you need to improve the product. So just make it very clear that you're not going to get offended. If anything is hard to do, it's because you haven't done a very good job prototyping it, but that is the kind of feedback that you're looking for, to know what doesn't work and why. And finally, you just want to double check with your tester that they're comfortable, first of all, being interviewed. And if you are recording the session for your other colleagues or kind of marking down their name or anything like that, just to make sure that they're comfortable with you capturing that data. And because you don't want to be in a situation where a tester would feel uncomfortable and when they're good enough to give you a hand by testing your product. So that's kind of the intro overview. Before you jump into the background questions, it's always worth asking the tester, is everything okay there? Do they have any questions? Do they understand what the process is going to be? So just to let them get a chance to speak and to ask anything if something's unclear. When you jump into the background questions, again, these will vary greatly depending on the type of person you're interviewing. If it's, a B2B product, it'll be a lot more maybe around their job or the industry they work in, and maybe around their experience with technology. If it's a technology product, if it's a product, a B2C or a direct-to-consumer product, it might be more about what personal apps do they use, or how long do they spend on their phone, and those kind of questions. So those background questions can be tweaked, but it's worth asking a few just to get a sense of who it is that you're speaking to. Next, we've got a little section here around, I suppose, the setup before you go into the tasks that you want your user to complete. So you're just highlighting here that you want the user to think out loud as they're kind of going through the tasks, and again, to be as open and as honest as they can. And it's also helpful just to get users or to encourage users to talk through what they're seeing on the page before kind of racing through with the task. So that's just kind of the setup before they go into the tasks themselves. Once they are completing those tasks, so once those tasks are underway, it's helpful to ask some probes or kind of some prompts just to keep them going. So, can you explain that back to me? What would you do next? Or what would you do now? What do you think that means, or what do you make of that? So just some helpful prompts just to kind of keep the conversation flowing and make sure that they're kind of consistently giving you that bit of feedback. And then once they've completed all of their tasks, it's helpful to ask some post-test questions just to wrap things up. So you can ask some very general ones, like which parts do you think were good? Did you find anything frustrating? Did you feel anything was missing? They're good to kind of get a general sense of what they thought about the prototype. Again, some of these are kind of B2B, so you can ask all of these, you could ask none of them, you can pick a mix of them. They're just here to give you ideas, but say, for a B2B product, you know, it might be, if applicable, what would take this product from a probably not to a need to have for your team. So that's one that might be useful there. And it's just another way of asking what do they feel was missing, or kind of what functionality would they need to see in there. Sometimes people can be a bit cagey about providing answers, so asking questions, sometimes a similar question in a couple of different ways, can sometimes help get that information out. And again, other questions like, did you think this app was trustworthy? Or if you had a magic wand and you could change anything about what you just experienced, what would it be? So that kind of keeps it open, that they could remove something or change something or add something new in. So questions like that are always helpful to ask at the end, just to get a general sense of what your tester thought about it. So that's this resource. As I said, it's a user testing script, so you can make copies of this each time you're speaking to a new user for your testing. And I would definitely recommend checking out this blog post by Elena if this is your first time conducting a user test session.